Okay, we're now live.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. and this is the February 21st meeting of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation. And let's begin by opening for public comments. Richard, do we have anyone who has signed up or sent in public comments?
We did not have anyone sign up or send in public comments prior to the meeting.
All right, then, with the board's approval, then, we will go on to approval of minutes. Item number 1, minutes for the regular and special meeting of January 17th, 2022. We got those today, and also you have a copy in front of you. Does anyone have any questions? Has everyone had a chance to read them?
Yes.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion on said minutes.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes, January 17th.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes for the regular and special meeting of January 17th, 2022. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of approving the minutes for the regular and special meeting of January 17th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will approve the regular and special meeting minutes for January 17th, 2022. Item number 2, financial report for January 2022. Carol?
Yes, ma'am. The interest rate from tax pool has stayed the same. As the report shows, the sales tax transfer of $152,610.02 will be transferred on February the 18th, and this will show on the next report. And I just want to remind everybody that last month was $70,369.14. Anthony says that this will be our last report printed in QuickBooks. They have changed over to Encode, so it'll be interesting to see the difference in it. Maybe it won't be any different, but are there any questions?
Well, didn't he say something to the fact that that new system is more real time, or did he say something to that effect before? It seemed like I remember saying it was more of a real time type of program that gave you, I don't know, he was excited about it, that's all.
Oh, yeah.
What you're saying is correct. From the staff point of view, we'll have, between whether it's from the department level through myself into Anthony, there'll be direct communication within the system as items are relayed electronically. What's done now is we get a paper receipt, it's handed out to the department head, who stamps it, writes on it in terms of how it's coded with regards to the budget. That's passed along. That will all be done on the computer, and it will all track with the budget.
Okay.
As opposed to just being tracked with the
No
budget.
doubt we had a humongous sales tax of what, 650,000 or so, and so that's a huge blessing. But just for my clarification, it was transferred on 2/18, so just because it's 152 doesn't necessarily mean that's a half cent based on February. Obviously, it can't be February.
Well, that's what we receive in February is lagging. It's what was done in business in March. February is also ends up being paid on a quarterly basis. Companies that file once a quarter, so they filed at the end of the quarter. It's companies that filed monthly for the month of December, which, as you know, December for some businesses is a prime month for business. And there are some smaller companies that file annually. That's filed at the end of the year in December, and so it's paid February. February in many years is the single largest payment month, not always. There was one company that had a large payment on there that we're looking into. Out of the 650-ish thousand from the city, that was approximately $50,000. So it did not, that one company alone did not throw off the number in some huge amount. That's large enough.
We were
for us
still
to track.
60 grand over the previous high.
But yeah, only once, other than payment made in error, has this city, as a total payment, received over $500,000.
Right.
This was over $600,000.
Yes, okay.
I mean,
Good
so
stuff.
It was large for many payers across the board.
But depending on how things go, so this happened, what, 4 or 5 years ago when we had HEB mistakenly paid the city by a large amount that was in excess of the city's 10% of the city's entire year budget. And rather than leaving it in the general fund segregated, we actually put it into a separate account and kept it away from sales tax income, away from our idea of spendable income, and then launched into a long series of communications between the comptroller and HEB to convince them that it was highly unlikely that that was a correct allocation of sales tax. And let's say 6 to 8 months later, they finally reversed it. Now, when Carol was here, when I first came on city council, we were in the middle of a series of takebacks. If the comptroller makes a mistake and they pay us something that doesn't belong to us, they don't feel any sorrow about taking it back.
No.
And for a city that we were at the time, that was actually a serious financial blow when they would say, oh, sorry, we need $70,000 back. You know, we would have to pay it in installments, and those installments started adding up. So, you know, both from an accounting honesty standpoint and from a practical standpoint, you know, it's a good idea to, again, track down things that are suspicious, like, or at least unexpected. Suspicious is the wrong word, but unexpected, and to put it in a separate account if at some point you start to roll over on a 6 month, or you start getting to the point where you want to redo your budget or something like that. So you remember that this money is not for spending. I think at this point, you know, it's a small enough amount, and we aren't at a point where we're going to be redoing our 2022 budget yet, or we're not in an emergency, and Anthony's planning on discussing the issue, following it up and figuring out where it came from. But, you know, for the city in particular, I mean, that kind of money could be a personnel position, and you would hate to have to walk that back after you thought that, you know, that was real money.
Sure.
So it is important, and especially if you're running your 23 numbers based on your 2022 actual, and then you say, oh, well, we'll be conservative and we'll only go up 5%. But then all of a sudden, your base drops by 5%, and you've already done your 2023 numbers off of a too high number. It's important to remember that money is not real until you've really accounted for it for a number of reasons.
And I can't remember when Anthony said he would get the report. You think he's already gotten it this week?
We got it late Thursday,
Okay.
or overnight Thursday to Friday, so we've only had time to do the report, so we looked at the top numbers.
Good.
Later, during this next week, we'll go into it.
Okay.
So,
All right.
but that is something we do every month, is go through those top payers. If we see anything that looks out of ordinary, then look into, well, what did we receive? Is it something we expected? And if necessary, do we need to have any follow-up with it?
Right, but our experience with HEB was that, I mean, it was well in excess of 6 months of discussions about something that we need. We could not figure within our city limits where they would have, we figured it was sales tax on equipment that they bought, but where they would have, who they would have purchased it from, or where they would have been having it installed. I mean, like, there's just nothing here that would have worked with that purchaser. And I mean, we could not discuss it with them in a way that got them to reverse it. I mean, we were begging them to take their money back, and they wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
you're right. Literally, was we contacted the comptroller's office, said, we saw no way that could be our money. They went back and looked at the reports and said, well, yes, it's your money. Because they're looking at a faulty report that
Right.
someone from that company miscoded somehow. And 6, 7, 8, 9 months later, whatever it was much later, it was a call from the comptroller's office. Oh, this is a courtesy call, you've received this money in error, we're gonna be taking it out next month.
So it's good that we had it put into a
yes.
separate bank account and already taken off of our books, so what hadn't caused all of these collateral problems.
Yeah,
That's
it,
right.
it resulted in a 0 collections the next month and a $2,000 collections in the following month. So essentially, it was equal to 2 regular months worth of collections.
So anyway, this is why it actually is a really big deal. And,
That's right.
you know, even though this time it's relatively small, it brings up bad memories.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And back from when Carol and I were first working together on council, and then when they had done that repeatedly, and it had really caused a strain on the city's budget, and then this big number that we were begging them to deal with, and they still didn't deal with. So don't get too excited.
No. Any other questions?
If If there are no other questions, then we can entertain a motion to approve the financial report.
I'll make a motion, we approve the financial report.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the financial report for January 2022. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any other discussion on this item? All those in favor of approving the financial report for January 2022 say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will approve the financial report for January 2022. Item number 3, discussion and consideration of an economic development grant application from Reflected Life Ministries. Richard?
Okay. The EDC grants fall within the category of the MEDC to grant when the board of directors feel they are appropriate. MEDC funds used in this manner are intended to promote new business and development or enhance development of existing business. And there are several questions previously the EDC asked me to look into with all grants, which I outlined down through here, starting with, is this type of expenditure legal and appropriate for the Economic Development Corporation? Promotion, my response to this one, and I'll go through this with this one. We have another grant. I'm not going to go through it in the same detail because
Okay.
people have just covered it. Promotion and sponsorship of events drawing people to the city is an appropriate expenditure for the MEDC to consider. The MEDC has spent funds in conjunction with past events for the city in this manner. Number 2, what is the perceived benefit of the event that complies with allowable categories with the MEDC expenditures? This event is expected to draw at least several hundred people into the city's historic preservation district for several hours. That will lead to increased revenue for surrounding businesses. This project also goes to the quality of life consideration of this event as well. Quality of life is one of your defined categories that we budget for and that the EDC is allowed to spend money on. This applicant's project message is centered around suicide prevention, which is also a worthy, I believe is worthy of the request, going to quality of life with that. In addition, the episodes of Breaking Strongholds are expected to be shown publicly at an event on April 16th. These feature many locations in the city that tie into our existing marketing and tourism partnership with Reflective Life Ministries. When I get to the end of this, we do have a video to show you that is the video that was previously contracted between the EDC and Breaking Strongholds for marketing purposes, so you can see some quality of their work. Is this location for the grant request in the city? Yes, it's in the city and it was noted in the application, which is, I think, it's an important item to remember that the Economic Development Corporation is spending money. You want that spent for an MCU location or something out of the city. Does proposed work to be done conform to the city requirements? And yes, this applicant has met with city representatives on this item. In terms of scheduling, they've also applied for the necessary permitting for the event. They're requesting $5,000 in grant funds to be used towards the $5,147.42 cost of the audio, video, and stage equipment. Their total budget is $9,000, so they're requesting $9,000 for $5,000. And if you would like, I'll go ahead and show that video.
Yes. I'm excited to see it because,
You'll be able to watch it on either of these two screens.
okay, so Richard, just to clarify, this is the video that they completed that we had, that was sort of a quid pro quo video for the city.
It was part of the previous grant
Okay,
that we had where in the previous year.
gotcha.
When we were looking for the location to film the TV series Breaking Strongholds, we wanted to find a place that was rich in Texas history. We wanted to portray a small, charming Texas town. When we found Montgomery, we knew we had our location.
The city of Montgomery has really embraced us with open arms. From the residents to the businesses, it's been nothing short of amazing.
When you shoot a film in a unique place like Montgomery, the town really becomes a character in production. This town is layered with history. One of the homes that we filmed was built in the 1800s. Walking through a unique Montgomery home like this, you feel the echoes of Texas history.
Montgomery Clock 105. There's a lot to experience in Montgomery, Texas.
From the many bed and breakfasts,
to the rich Texas history. You know, this is the birthplace of the Texas flag.
And let's not forget about the one-of-a-kind wedding days. the restaurants. But you know the best part about Montgomery? Is the people and the Texas-sized hearts. So for all of us here breaking strongholds,
It's so good to see it, isn't it?
So with all of that I presented to you is basically telling you that you're able to consider this grant request. It meets all the standards, that are necessary. It's up to the EDC board here to decide if you would want to. Terry Weaver, who's making this request on behalf of Reflective Life Ministries. Terry, would you like to speak any more about this grant request?
yes, I think that the estimates for the attendance for the event are pretty meager. I believe that we can probably get 500 to 600 in the area that we're planning to show this. The big expense for the AV is because we're planning to rent a LED wall, which essentially can be seen throughout the day. It's an incredible device, and the size of it will be 20 feet wide by 10 feet tall. And we're going to use the grass area behind the community center to see hundreds of people there. But also throughout the day, we're going to do tours of locations within the city with people who purchase tickets. The event will be free to anybody that wants to come out and watch episodes 1 and 2 of the show. But we're going to do like site tours, and we're going to have residents coming from all over the area. We have people coming from Dallas and Kingwood already, and they will be taking tours, taking pictures by these iconic landmarks that are in the show, like the 105 Clock Tower. So we'll have people promoting the show at the event, and then when the show launches 2 weeks later, it's going to launch globally. It will be available to over 2 billion people. And this tourism video will just connect the project, connect the event, connect the television series further to Montgomery, Texas. And just one last thing, I looked up some of these numbers. Those are all great economic reasons to do this event. But I did want to share a couple things with you. The current budget's at $10,065. But this is what's most important to us, because this is a ministry effort for us. There's 5,240 youths, grades 7 to 12, who attempt suicide daily in the United States. That's a number from the CDC. And that's why this project is so important to us as a production company. Last week, a lot of people know that I'm working on this project. Last week alone in Montgomery County, I received 3 phone calls about completed suicides. And so this is a really big issue that I think that the city and the residents can be a part of.
And you had 3 or 4, seems like you posted in Montgomery County alone last week or 2 weeks ago, attempts or suicides actually in Montgomery County. Did I see that on Facebook?
I'm not sure where that came from. It could have been from one of our team members. But
Okay.
I received personal phone calls from people I know, letting me know that they had friends in this area.
So Terry, can I ask a couple of questions? First off, I wanted to know, this is going to be for episodes 1 and 2, which nobody's, have y'all previewed 2 yet?
2 has been previewed twice, but
Okay.
in an auditorium of 120 people in the Woodlands.
Got
So
it.
this will be the first time on a mass scale that
Right.
it's been seen.
Good. And the last time I think we spoke, you guys were really close to finalizing the other, all the way up through 4, am I correct? Or
4 will be done by, the launch date for episode 4 is 31st, or 21st.
okay.
So they're going to roll out beginning April 30th. Episode 1 will be available to anybody that has, a device, an internet-connected device on April 30th, and a week later, episode 2 will roll out. A week later, episode 3 will roll out. A week later, episode 4 will roll out.
And are these episodes rolling out on any mainstream platforms, or whereabouts?
They are. We haven't released the information yet.
Oh, okay.
They are going to be available, and I can share it with you. We're going to put them out to reach our demographic, and we're going to put them out directly on YouTube because the show has been fully funded, in addition to other platforms. But this will be available to anybody that has
YouTube TV, yeah.
and that's where our target demographic is on YouTube.
Because the youth watch YouTube, yes?
That's right.
Yeah.
It'll also be on PureFlix and Amazon Prime, and we're working on Hulu and a couple, Tubi TV, and a bunch of other non-exclusive deals. In fact, KSBJ wants the show for their platform, Hope on Demand, so it'll be on
Multiple platforms, multiple streaming devices. Good. This is the same LED wall that we had talked about for Christmas. It's the same size and everything else, and I had no idea. I mean, that's a reasonable price, I think, because they're normally like 6 or 7. What was there was quotes, I even looked at them, like $8,000 for one of these walls.
They say they're giving us a 50% discount, and that brings it down to $5,120. They know we're a ministry.
Gotcha.
So I don't know
Yeah.
what that market value would be without that discount.
Wow, it's phenomenal.
That's a rental, right?
That's what we're
Yeah, rental rate, yeah. They're expensive to rent. And they do all the setup, Terry?
They do all the setup, labors factored in.
Good. Any other questions?
So Carol, in terms of the budget, we have $40,000 left in our other events category.
Hey Richard, there's this quote in here, it says typical grants are awarded at 1/3 the project costs. Where's that precedent coming from? And why is that put in there?
That's what's posted in the application form.
Is it just,
It's just a guideline. What it is meant to make, I think, the applicants, think carefully about what they want to request versus basically requesting 100% of the money for their project.
was that something that was wanted to be added by previous MBTC?
I can't tell you the background on it because it's been there since prior to my being hired here. So that's,
And prior to my time as well.
It was,
what I do know is, some past grants have, they haven't followed that closely. It's been based on a grant-to-grant standard. And on the application, it doesn't say that it won't go beyond that, just that is a guideline.
My personal preference would be for larger grants, it would be closer or even less than 1/3, but for smaller ones, it matters a little bit less. In that, rather use money for more projects rather than concentrate it all on one, if that makes sense. So, sorry, we could do this as an event or as an economic development grant. Sorry, I had asked a question about something that was unrelated to how it was geared for the request. I was going to say, you answered the question that I asked, but you should have said I didn't know what I was asking.
because I knew that total, but I was like, I better go back through here and see what.
So our total for economic development grants is, what do we have remaining?
20,000.
Okay.
But the money is there in that category for, and that is how it's presented.
Okay.
Obviously, the EDC board could pull it from here
Right.
because it really could qualify as either.
Shall we entertain a motion?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept, or that we fund the $5,000 grant requested by Reflective Life Ministries for the upcoming event in April.
I'll second it.
It has been moved and seconded that we fund the $5,000 economic development grant application from Reflective Life Ministries. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. So to be clear, this is $5,000 from the economic development grant line item.
Correct.
Okay, any further discussion on this item? Those in favor of approving a $5,000 economic development grant application from Reflective Life Ministries, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will approve a $5,000 economic development grant application from Reflective Life Ministries.
Just an FYI, I did bring, this is for everybody, specific promotional materials to the youth directors at Fellowship, First Montgomery, and Lakeside Bible. That's for your information as well. They have this in their hands. If you have a church represented or you see a poll of you specifically, please get that directly to the youth director. And interestingly, 1 out of 3 of those knew about this specifically. One said that they had done a kind of a lock-in presentation regarding the suicide. And so that's the specific thing that we can do, you know, to get as many youth to see that on April 16th and their parents.
You know, and there's some other churches in the area too. Restoration Church has a massive youth program.
That's the other.
And they're right off of Fish Creek Thoroughfare, kind of on your way back, you know. That's another one you want to get information out to. And they'll spread it to multiple churches because they have their hands in multiple, I don't even know how many. They mention a new church every week. So I think, yeah, the youth would definitely benefit. Now, obviously, that's the target. But congratulations on getting it further down the line, and great video for our city. I'm looking forward to getting that on social media. When are we going to break that some point or get it out there? Is it ready for prime time yet?
I think we've kind of been waiting for this moment to make sure the EDC was excited about it as well. So
Good.
Just another FYI, about a year ago, and Terry might know more about Judge Mack and the initiative, and I was on a Zoom conference in January, and for the first time, Montgomery County flattened the Montgomery County suicides. And so that brings the point that for 10 consecutive years, there was a climb. Wow. So no, it didn't go down, but the flat line, so this combination of awareness and then actually getting counselors involved and then talking to parents is beginning to show some benefits.
Well, and Judge Mack, I know you know Judge Mack, but he has a massive platform. I mean, he's on Fox and Friends, he's on, you name it, he's on it, because he wears his faith, you know, openly, and has been, of course, pulverized for it, but sued, you name it. But he would be a really good person to have on hand if he's available for that Thursday event, because, Saturday event. So it's the 9th, correct?
This is the
16.
16th, okay, sorry. But if you can get Judge Wayne Mack to at least get in front of him and let him know about it, especially now that you guys have the funding and everything to pull off a really cool event, he would be phenomenal, because he's got his following is pretty extraordinary. So.
I just want to say thanks so much for the support, and we'll do a good job at this event, and not necessarily asking you as an MEDC board, but as individuals, if you want to get behind this, please help share it with everyone you know.
Absolutely.
We need to get this message out.
Absolutely.
And so thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Terry. Great video. Thank you, brother.
okay then, if the board is ready to move on, we'll go to item number 4, discussion and consideration of an economic development grant application from Tory LLC. Richard?
All right, the information was attached. Total project cost $15,425.63, and he's requesting $10,000 to be applied as a grant. You look at the attached, you can see the type of sign. This particular application was presented, I think about a year ago to the MEDC board. It was rejected at that time because he had not applied for a city sign permit. He has applied for the appropriate city sign permit at this time. Also attached with, I guess I've run through the same questions. This is something that would be legal for the MEDC to consider, provided the MEDC determines that approval of such a sign is in the economic benefit of the city. The requester has attached projections for sales tax revenue to the city from what the tenants in those spaces would provide. I did email him a week ago asking for additional information and had not received any reply to that. So I don't have any information beyond what he's presented here to provide to you on that. It's like, the location for this grant is in the city, and it does conform to city requirements, so they said he's applied for, he has received his permit. So if the EDC board does fund this at the $10,000 level, it would have to go to city council for approval because of the dollar amount on there. Do you have any questions for me?
Now, this is his second time, is that right?
Second time.
But we
for
denied it because
Right.
he didn't get a signed permit.
I thought it was more than that.
We didn't need to discuss it, to be honest, because it was just like a.
He was asking for quite a bit more.
I don't think we could find where it benefited the city or, I mean, it was
I don't-
like paying for a sign on private property.
Well,
It's a normal,
Advertising the businesses on that property.
yeah.
I'm comfortable with the 5,000, but I'm not comfortable with 10,000. And we have spent this amount or more on people's signs in the Montgomery area. This is a major thoroughfare coming into the town, and but I'm not for the 10,000.
I think it
kind
goes
of
back
lean-
to what we discussed at the last meeting in terms of the cost of doing business. You know, you open the gate and then all of a sudden you're inundated with.
Sign applications. And we had talked about maybe creating a budget item for sign applications or creating a special procedure for that, didn't we
Yeah.
discuss that?
I think there's some general discussion, but I don't think it was anything that we.
I just don't feel
moving
comfortable
forward.
being, we set a precedent of approving new signs anytime a new business comes in. I feel like that's.
But we have the
Or the
option of
possibility.
denying or approving it. So if 10 people showed up tonight with these, we have the option of approving them or denying them. So unless the word gets out a whole lot more than it's gotten out, this is only my this is my first sign since I've been on MEDC.
My other thing is that I think,
And-
you know, in terms of the visual impact, like I wouldn't mind paying to upgrade to have it look with more of a historic Montgomery flair that we're going for, and I get that that sort of thing can cost more. So if you said, my sign costs $10,000, but what I'd really like is something that fits in with what y'all are trying to do, but that's gonna be $12,000, would you pay for the bump? To me, that would be, you know, everyone knows that you have to have a sign for your business. I get that that's a cost of doing business, but I want it to be within your vision for the city, and that does cost more. Would you be willing to participate? To me, that's kind of more of an extra cost of not doing the regular cost of doing business, but, you know, extra flair.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, you know, you open up a pretty good sized can of worms if you start letting every business come in here and ask for a new sign. And I think what Ryan's saying is probably something we should consider is maybe if we're going to go that direction, we might want to put a separate line item budget, and maybe if we even want to go there. But, you know, cost of doing business is cost of doing business. I can't tell you how many times I've had to replace our signs, tornadoes, and you name it. So, I mean, I didn't come out here with my hat in my hand. I mean, we just did it because it's part of doing business.
And if we do signage, you know, there's a possibility that we look around and we say, you know, there's like 6 signs that are particularly not within what we're looking for. Again, like the vision we have for Montgomery.
Right.
What is it gonna take to, you
And
know,
this would be one of them.
to make it more in line with what we hope to have and, you know,
Yeah.
set up a negotiation, and this is what we're bringing to the table to hopefully give you the carrot.
I agree. I think if we're gonna, once we start doing our reconstruction, you know, we might want to update some of those and offer some assistance, but just to build someone a brand new pylon sign. I don't know, I'd forgotten that it was about the application. I thought we had denied it overall.
I think we just didn't really start talking about it because it wasn't even a real, it was a discussion about
Would
nothing.
fit out of
Yeah,
45.
agreed, yeah.
Wasn't there a discussion about Phil's, something regarding Phil's sign?
Yep, same thing.
There was at one point, but I don't recall it. We've never, to my knowledge, received an application from them.
Okay.
So I think they came up in discussion at one point, but, and they have recently upgraded, repaired that
I
sign.
see, last week we had last time we had the 42,000. I read Exhibit B and whatnot, he's asking for 5,000 additional, and he mentions landscaping and sprinkling costs and things of that nature. And I think when some of us read that with the 42,000 that was requested, we were going, whoa, wait, you know, it was getting out of hand type thing. And so all of us seem to have the same concern, opening up a precedent without already setting a budget to guide us is the deal. So you got your signs, then you got your beautification of those signs. And without having a pool of money designated for that, it's very hard for us to decide because we all have in our mind, well, there'll be 20 people in here.
And the only pool of money we have for it right now, because it's set up as an economic development grant, is your fund for economic development grants, which by definition is a pretty broad description, without having any additional funding.
And we just spent
bringing that carved into a specific use category.
And we just put 5,000 of that, of the 20,000, is that what you're saying?
Right, well, we have the category under the budget of economic development grants.
Right.
As a general descriptive category.
Okay.
But we do not have categories for, you know, for various
Right.
defined items, like you said, for signs or for other areas. It's just all in one category. If it's something that this board wants us to look into and maybe creating subcategories of that for different uses, we can look into that and bring something back to this board in a month or two.
I think in this case, I agree with Becky. I think well, I don't know if she would agree with this, but I think if we're going to do a grant application, it needs to be to provide money for them to go over and beyond what the standard typical is. I was kind of thinking about our grant funding for the fence around the cemetery. I mean, you could put a standard chain link fence up and that's utility right there, but we helped them increase the aesthetics of that area and really make the downtown city a lot prettier because of it. And I think I see that with signs too. If they want to make a historic sign, I think I'd be more willing, or some other type of aesthetic value to it rather than a standard sign that I'm seeing here. That'd be something I'd be more willing to invest in. But a standard sign, I'm not really sure I really care too much to put money toward that.
So this would be the base, and then anything you did above it to make it more in conformity with our goals.
That's kind of my philosophy behind it.
Yeah.
So.
I agree.
Okay, and that kind of input, if that's the will of this board, that kind of input then gives me better direction for the next time someone might come forward to me and go, well, the EDC board in discussion has discussed that they're not necessarily willing to fund a standard sign, but if you can show me, hey, the standard sign costs you $5,000, but if you want to make it look like it's more historic blend in the city, that's an extra $3,000.
Right.
They would be happy to consider that additional overage, saying the original sign is your cost of doing business, but the addition goes into the accenting the community. Is that what I'm hearing from y'all?
I think that would be
And
wise.
I think that would give us a lot more ammunition as well, rather than, picking, like 3 people per year to give something that's part of the cost of business. Whoever comes first, it gives us the ammunition. If you get, 5 or 6 or 8 people who, and that's usually the way Renaissance works, is, you see what your neighbor does and then you do it too. You can help everyone because it becomes a much smaller, you make your dollars go farther because everyone's leveraging off of it.
Well, if you're gonna set yourself up like that, also, you probably need to set a standard of the type of sign and how it needs to look to make it blend. I mean, it seems like the further out we start getting those big square brick and mortar style buildings, without any wainscoting and that type of stuff.
Have you ever been to Breckenridge, Colorado, or even looked at the town? The entire town is done in these eclectic, old, timey looking signs, and it's just the entire town has the same vibe. It's exact. So Breckenridge, Colorado, that's kind of what I envision as I'm hearing you talk about creating a vibe that everybody would subscribe to. I mean, they're not all the same exact signs. They have different colors and different shapes and different sizes, but the overall theme is that very historic, very vintage kind of feel to it as you go down and for our dollars, our MEDC dollars, to be able to encourage, that look, that kitschy kind of look, I think would be a boon to our city, and it just adds a little more character, if you will.
I'll schedule a workshop here next month.
I was gonna say, Dave, Richard, would you mind asking Dave if he has some thoughts or could pull some research, because I'm sure that,
Yeah.
the signage in Breckenridge doesn't happen by magic. So I'm sure.
No,
that-
that's master plan from the first brick all the way
Yeah.
through is how
I'm
that
sure
happens.
they've got some
But
good
I
ideas.
remember as I was walking down the town, taking picture of signs after signs after signs and thinking, wow, what if Montgomery looked like this? Oh, what a place it would be.
And we do still need some signage ideas for our wayfinding signs that Gunda identified as one of the priorities for our downtown plan.
Right.
So, you
Any
know,
questions, Richard, or you got it?
I was just gonna say, I have been to Breckenridge several years ago, so I do understand what
Yeah, good. Yeah, it just came to mind because I was so enamored and I thought, wow, it'd be great if Montgomery could look just like this. So, but
right, because signage is important for businesses. I mean, I don't think, you know, you want to go to the point where nobody knows where anything is because there's no signage at all. So you have to make it so that it's still big and visible and attractive for businesses to want to do it. Because again, we don't have, as a city council, we don't have the power to force people to do anything because the state legislature has taken that power away. So it has to be something that they want to do as well. So they have to have, you know.
Well, that would qualify under if you want money from EDC, this is what you do.
Well, but so the thing is, if we're only giving them the extra oomph over the standard,
Correct.
then it has to be just as good as the standard at getting people to come to their business.
Correct.
So it's complicated. We definitely need to find a way to help it make their business seem more attractive physically, or, you know, be just as eye-catching as the regular signs that are less attractive for the city as a whole.
And I will get with Dave on that, Dave McCorkadale, the Director of Planning and Development here, so see what we can pull from other places. Just give us a couple months to work on it and bring something back to you.
sounds good. So,
Motion to table.
Make a motion.
Do we deny it or do we table?
I think the general plan is to not do, yeah.
I'll make a motion to deny the economic development grant application from Tory LLC.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we deny the economic development grant application from Tory LLC. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of denying the economic development grant application from Tory LLC, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
No.
The motion carries 5-1 with Ms. Langley as the saying nay. But we will deny the economic development grant application from Troy Tech LLC.
Richard, will you tell this gentleman that the third time he comes, maybe he'll have a historical sign
We'll
to come
communicate-
before us?
I will communicate the thought and the reasoning with him,
Thank
as
you.
well as let him know that when we develop those guidelines,
Yes.
we can communicate that to him as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Item number 5, authorize signing and execution of a banking resolution by the approved MEDC bank account signers.
All right, the action you took last month designating signers allowed us to work with the bank to get a resolution developed, which I did get very late Friday, so. But we need to actually have an item authorizing all of the approved signers, which is the officers of the board of directors plus myself, to execute that document.
So what is the wording that needs to take place on that?
Authorize the signing and execution of a banking resolution by the MEDC approved banking account signers.
Oh, okay.
Or wait till the recommendation block.
Okay,
Oh, that one.
there we go.
Okay.
Would anyone like to make that?
I move to authorize signing and execution of a banking resolution by the approved MEDC banking account signers.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that we authorize the signing and execution of a banking resolution by the approved MEDC banking account signers. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will authorize the signing and execution of a banking resolution by the approved MEDC banking account signers. Item number 7, consideration of possible action to authorize photo shoot expenses with Sterling Regard Photography.
Oh, you missed
Yeah, you
number
missed
6.
Sorry, number 6. Consideration possible action to approve the special projects manager position.
Before I go into that, I can just say, if I can put this resolution up there for the signers to circulate. On the front, there's a sheet that has your name with the color tab if you go through and
sign on your app.
You
Don't
messed
sign
that
on
up.
your app.
Because it'll slow things down if we have to track you down later.
I'm pink. Can you believe it?
With that, the item of the special projects manager position was approved last month by this board. It was approved by the city council with changes to the position. They modified the job position to take over the duties of the contracted social media position as well. That updated job position is posted online. I have attached it here. I will tell you that does add a fair amount of work that I will be having to look at as to how those duties are best taken care of. I may have other staff positions have to take those on, or I just have to figure out how to best prioritize those, because that's a fair amount of work to add to it. But I have at this time, I think, I've received 3 applications for the position.
Really?
And leaving that open through the end of the month, where we'll start the process of reviewing those, interviewing. My goal is to be able to have someone, hired on staff by the end of March, knowing, some leeway in there, knowing that someone may need to give a couple weeks notice from their current position.
Gotcha.
So my goal is I'll be able to make a decision by middle of March, have them on staff end of March, beginning of April.
So there's nothing to approve at this point?
No, I think we have to approve the changes that city council made to the duties and positions.
Oh, I see,
The
okay.
duties and-
So,
we don't have a choice really unless you want to pull the position altogether.
all right, so should we make that recommendation then? I mean, go ahead
If you
and,
make a motion to,
to accept the city council's recommendation for amending the position of,
or you can just say to approve the
Yeah,
job description as presented.
okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the job description as submitted for the special projects manager that was approved by city council.
Thank you.
Any seconds?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the special projects manager position as presented. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item?
Question, is this position funded by EDC budget? Or?
Yes, it is.
Is that what was approved last time, in the last meeting?
It was
Fully funded by the
It was
EDC?
approved by this full board last time and went to
That's
city
what I recall.
council
I
because
just
of the
wanted to-
amount of the
Yeah.
cost. Where city council, who has oversight over EDC positions, is allowed to make those changes or requests. And, if the EDC wants to have city council's approval, which it needs or something like that, that essentially needs to go along or it needs to pull the action back.
Is item number 12 in the minutes?
Yeah. No, I recall that, I just wanted to make sure we're clear. I think in the,
So you're okay? Okay. So you ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the special projects manager position as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously, and we will approve the special projects manager position as presented. Back to number 7. Consideration of possible action to authorize photo shoot expenses with Sterling Regard Photography.
Okay, if you've seen the items attached with this, you see there's a proposal from Sterling Regard Photography for $750. It covers the cost of 3 photo shoots of, I think it was 34 different locations in the city. You'll get a minimum of 4 photos per location across the 3 photo shoots during the spring, between spring, summer, and fall of 2022. And they'll be taken in different ways, and to include with the Texas flag, hanging with it, with the front door, front and center on the buildings that they're recognizable, black and white, artistic and unique style photography with those. So these photos will be allowable or be usable for us and be owned by the city for various social media reasons, as well as be usable for Christmas cards, other kind of, or postcards, other kind of general cards, with one overall goal being, putting together into a larger book format that allows the focus of historic buildings in the city.
So Melissa's done all of the Christmas photos, she did the Fernland photos, and I think, she's done one other set of photos for us. So her style is distinctive, but I like it. It's a little bit.
Are those the photos on the website, or where can you see those?
On the Facebook page.
Facebook page.
She's been, very easy to work with in terms of our dealings with her. And I think the price is really quite reasonable.
Yeah, that's not an unreasonable amount at all. I mean, not for all those locations.
I was gonna say, not for dragging her to 34 locations.
Yeah, you got your post-processing.
I'm not that good a photographer, and I wouldn't do it for that much.
No.
You know, I
We'll go with
have,
my iPhone for that matter.
I have photos of historic buildings in the winter storm I could give to the city if I want them.
I have been using them.
Oh, you have? I may have told you that you can use them. I couldn't remember if I said that or not explicitly.
Yeah,
We wrote
you
that.
did. I'm glad you said
So
that.
now it's public record.
When will we get another forward snowfall for those?
But thank you, before we use them commercially, I would certainly have had something assigned, but I have repurposed them for social media.
You should come for a grant.
Maybe I should charge some.
Yeah, so
Exactly what it is.
That's funny.
I love your photos, they're really good.
Thanks.
I'll make a motion to authorize the photo shoot expenses with sterling regard photography.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we authorize the photo shoot expenses with sterling regard photography. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will authorize the photo shoot expenses with sterling regard photography. Item number 8, consideration of possible action regarding the extension terms and duties of the contracted events coordinator position through the hiring of the special projects manager position.
I'm not sure how those two, this one and the 1, 2 before it were separated, but what this is, and we discussed this briefly last month with the hiring of the special projects manager position, and there being a couple delays. This board has previously extended the cost of the contracted position at an increased rate. I believe it was through the end of either January or February. And we discussed bringing that back, so I'd like to ask for that increased rate to continue to be extended through the end of, or through the hiring of the special projects manager, which I expect to be no later than the end of March, but with a little give and take there that we're dealing with people, someone may have to give notice, and so I would expect the target time for starting is going to be in the 3rd or 4th week of March.
Okay.
Could get into a little bit to April, could be earlier in March.
I think it's clear what we want the position to be doing and what the person doing the position should be paid. So regardless of whether they're contract or salary, I think that person should be doing that work for that pay. And I think
Well, things haven't stopped happening, so we're just continuing to pay for what
as
we're
I
already
say,
getting.
so I
It's no
think
big
that the
deal.
pay should adjust to fit the role that the person is filling, and that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I agree.
The per hour rate is for somebody working contract instead of salary, and doing what we outlined that we wanted done as a special projects manager, regardless of what it is that we're calling the position now. Because if that's what we want, then we should be doing it. With that,
Yeah.
You're still vetting applicants.
At this time, I'm just receiving
We're not preemptively hiring.
the applications to the end of the month. Then as we get into the last week of the month.
Is that something you're going to present?
Then I'll start reviewing the paperwork. Then I'll start contacting people.
And then you make the decision on what staff member you're going to hire? Is that up to the MEDC? But you'll present to the MEDC who you selected and why, essentially, for the staff position?
Well, I guess I'm not sure what you mean by.
Well, I mean, you're going to hire someone.
I'm going to do the hiring, and then they will be introduced to the MEDC.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
Sure. Yeah.
But we're just needing to extend the current special projects manager salary so that we can get to the next step.
Right, because the previous extension only went.
I understand, yeah, I got it.
So far.
So can we just make a motion to extend that? Anybody?
Well, more
Well,
what I was saying, so we're saying two different things,
Yeah.
because I'm saying that if she's doing, because before, well, so is Amy doing just events coordinating, or is she stepping into the special projects role as everything that we want the person to be doing, whoever that is? And if she's actually doing that from now forward to whenever we get, whenever the position is closed, should we be paying for that position now? Or do we have her just narrowly focus on events coordinating?
Because we've already identified the salary, and so I can equate that to a
Yes.
per hour rate, even though it's on contract.
Right.
Bring that over for this, and then it's a short step into the higher position.
The only thing of that next position that to me is critical in timing is the funding that we need to get in front of, to me, because that is like hot right now. It's important for us not to lose another 30 to 45 days. That's the biggest thing for me. I mean, if we have a marketing lapse or whatever, that's fine. But we need somebody assigned to make sure that, as I gave the paper to you that Ryan, I think, had sent to me as well, there's a timeline here, and if you snooze, you lose. That would be my concern about, somebody needs to do that. I'm just saying.
So we need to have somebody who's not just doing events.
Right.
So then if we have the special projects manager, even if they're working as a contract, we should be paying them as a special projects manager.
That's what I think.
I feel like if we did the motion, it'd have to tie back into the previous, that we're increasing the pay to fit the job description somehow.
Well, that's all been approved. We just have to find the official permanent position. I mean, I think it's in the budget. So,
So when you hire this, or you move to this new title is what I would call it, I guess. So are we gonna have to try to hire an events coordinator? Is that, I'm kind of
well, the
lost. in
special
this.
projects manager does that.
Okay, so
They
it's all,
do that.
we're not trying to hire someone else down the road. We're gonna move
Well-
forward and then put somebody else.
I'm not exactly sure what city council had in mind with
Yeah.
adding 20 hours a week of extra work on top of.
Right, no, I have no problem with that. I know it's
I'm not sure what they had in mind. with that.
So just so we're clear, right now, we have an events coordinator and we have a social media
Right.
person.
As of right now.
And now they want to combine it for the salary that we had already approved, which was the 55, right?
Plus the additional duties that were detailed in the job description.
Right. So then what you're asking is, do we want that person to take on those responsibilities? That's what we're not clear on.
As of this second, I'm contemplating special projects as initially envisioned by MEDC with the social media separated out.
I would say, yeah, let's just leave it the way it is, and let's just extend this until we've completed the application process and
Right.
Richard's made a decision.
But what Byron's saying is that we've got stuff on the hop that needs to be dealt with now as the originally envisioned special projects role that would incorporate.
It's a
So-
timing thing. I just have this fear that by the time you do legwork, paperwork, and everything else, if we don't make sure that we've got somebody already representing us in Houston, Galveston, that is the person who's going to get the money in addition to the grants. As I've tried to instruct people, grants are wonderful, but they have all these red tape things that make you go back and it's, so, but there's gifts out there and the season is right. If you don't plant your seeds now, you'll lose out in the summer and the fall.
So is that the special projects manager's job?
Yes.
Is to go out and get grants?
And what we had in mind, and Carol, if I'm wrong, just correct me on here, but you had a range of like 55 to 65. And the feeling was brought up on the council that, okay, we're paying for this and then we're paying for the
Right.
other part of the marketing for an additional 18. It has every appearance, like I said with Richard, in my mid-management, when the mid-manager starts saying, I need part-time, then later on they say, I need another part-time. We need to seriously look at the fact that the city's growing really rapidly, and we need the right people in the right spots. Otherwise, we get so scattered and skewed with marketing trends, crossovers and things like that. Wouldn't it be nice if at least we attempted to get a person who could do all of this magic, and then we could be able to come in here and say, heck, let's go more than 65. Because we think it's worth it, because I've seen some evidence that says that the job that's currently being done by Rebecca is, if I was a marketing person, I would say, there's a good job being done right now where it's at. But again, my experience is when you tell the school board, I need to know the secretary, or this person's not paid enough, you need to back it up with data, and for the first time I'm seeing that. So that's where I'm coming from with that.
I'm still confused though, because I don't think that's one job, that's a lot on one person. The event, what we talked about when we came back and received that new job description did not include grant applications and social media. That's an old job in itself.
A lot of time away.
This position, I don't see dealing directly with the grant applications because we employ contractors for that.
That's what I thought.
What it does deal with though is directly is economic development functions on behalf of the EDC. So there may be some tie-in with that, but it's with the EDC, not.
So Byron, I'm confused. What are you saying then? Are you saying that this person, I'm not sure. Tell me what you're
I'm
saying.
hoping that this is a person that I see the EDC and the festivals and the tourism. I see all of that as marketing to me. I mean, and that's why I was trying to attach my label to that, is that you're marketing to draw tourists. That's what tourism is. And so the job that was being done with Rebecca, in addition, it has this consolidation that I feel like is there, because again, things have changed so rapidly in 4 or 5 years. The public keeps telling me, I get text, why do we need this, why do we do that? I need staff to give me data, because I made the same mistake. They don't know what a public education information management system person does. That means nothing to do that my wife would do. Right. So I have to validate what my wife does. So I go to my wife and I say, they need to see what she does, because if she doesn't code correctly, the money doesn't come from the government. When you explain to people what you're doing, then you can go down and start saying, here's some ammunition for me as a city council member, as a MEDC, when these people go, well, I remember when I was mayor in 19, all right, they're just down there hiring this and hiring that. Our payroll's going up. I'm just trying to give some general direction, y'all. I mean, if you feel like it's good the way it is, roll with it. But again, we need to be talking the same language out there and be able to say, well, we're getting X number of hits. 154% increase out of this job that you're complaining about. I need ammunition. You know what I'm saying? Besides just ambiguous stuff.
So what's on the table here though is real simple. We're just looking to extend the current status quo till we get to the person who we're going to hire for that job, correct?
I guess yes. I mean, I don't understand the new job, to be honest, because I don't know how you get everything that was initially envisioned being done by 1.5 people, done by one person. But
Would the salary being better do that?
no.
Well, you
So
only
you're saying
have
these are
24 hours.
two completely different, from a coaching standpoint, I would be getting a volleyball coach to fuse with a football, and the volleyball has no crossover to
No,
that.
the problem is that you have somebody who is forcing you to pay so that people will respect, but I'm still doing a public service, and so I'm charging half of what I could make on the open market and if I move somewhere else. So that's your real problem. So I could make $120,000 if I was working somewhere else full time.
Well, I've been doing that my whole life, so I'm there with you.
So that's your problem.
I could make free market enterprise on my skill set
So it has
for
nothing
35
to do
years.
with the quality of anybody's skills. That has to do more with the quantity of time that people have and they're willing to put towards a job on, how much people will work without burning out. And so you can have somebody who will, so you either have people who will lie and say, I'm so good at this that you can hire me and, you'll never notice the difference, which I don't know how that would happen because things will just not get done. Or you'll have somebody who says, I don't mind working 60 hours a week every week, and on the days that there are festivals, I'll work 80 hours. And again, you're not going to keep that person. I just don't know where.
I think the social media is much bigger than what, I think this is, we're trying to put too much onto one human. When we agreed to do this, we came back with the job description, we liked the job description, we approved it based on that job description, and now city council has come back and added a whole nother layer that is well beyond the scope that we had even discussed. We never even had that on the table, that we were going to pile on social media. Social media is a whole nother position in my view. I'm not saying we should not have someone doing social media, and I don't know if it needs but one person to do both of those jobs.
I was gonna say, if you were to do anything, you should replace me with somebody who's working full-time and you're paid.
I agree.
$220,000 is really what you should do.
Well, I'm telling you, I don't care what we do, we won't justify that when we pay $255,000 for 2 managers. I'm just telling you
No,
what I'm
that's-
hearing.
I get it, but.
The whole enchilada is what we have to be able to defend, and we can't go out there with no ammunition to say things have changed rapidly to justify 100,000, 20, or what
But
you're
you're
talking
looking
about.
at things on a basis of, I go to the store and buy a yogurt, so if I buy 2 yogurts, it should be 2x. If you want a job to be done that doesn't exist within your environment, it's not the same as a yogurt. I mean, you might have to go to another market and get something that just doesn't exist here, and, you know, you might have to buy a cow to get, you know, your special thing.
You know, and also, Becky, just to, I mean, you can hire third-party, nothing but social media gurus.
You can and you can't. I mean, Richard has looked into that several times to get rid of me. And, you know, a lot of what they're willing to do is full court press advertising packages, but what it's not is the everyday slog of genuine content that is researched, photographed, and edited here. You don't have to edit it here, but you have to do the research in, you know, in people's, whatever they give you in terms of photographs, you have to find stories, you have to, you know, go take your own photographs. Those companies don't do that stuff. They're not on the ground here doing that.
Yeah, if you look at what a lot of other local cities around Montgomery County do, you know, we have this event coming up. It's a picture of something going on locally. It's the things that I could do on social media
Right.
or most people could do. It's not the development of content. It's not the bigger picture stuff. Well, if you remember, we'll have a report later in here about basically what our social media has done over an extended period. I think you may remember, I think it was at the end, I think it was like 2 months ago, presented information as to where and how our social media program has developed. You know, that we had more followers than most of the other cities in the county. You know, part of that is because we've been working in developing the content to bring people and to interest people.
Yeah.
And that's
No,
something that
I love what we're doing. I just don't understand why city council took it a step further. I wasn't aware that they had done that, and it seems to me, but that's not what this discussion is about today, and this motion. It's just to extend what we currently have. Is that what I'm?
So
Without
the
this-
position doesn't revert back to paying $1,500 for someone who is expected to work 20 hours.
Right, we're just extending the agreement that we had through February until we can get someone,
Plus
right?
some.
Right, that's, so why don't we just make a motion to do that, and then we'll take this other thing up later, right? Because we haven't hired anybody for that new position yet.
Yeah. And if we do that, is that then strictly just covering the events but not covering this other material? That's under the heading, because that's what Becky was presenting, was going ahead and paying based on this position, but also trying to start getting these duties covered in. That's what I
Right,
understand
I
you're
was
saying,
gonna
right?
say, what exactly, you know, do we want the non-social media anyway, the other?
I don't think, why would we do that?
Because you're going to be doing it
Why
in a
don't-
month anyway.
Why don't it just stay like it is right now
Agreed.
for the month of March? And Amy gets a check and Rebecca gets a check. And then when you hire the new person, that new person, And if Amy and Rebecca have to stay and help that person, then it's extended again. But the new person is going to do all these new jobs.
It seems confusing.
But what you're
to be
trying to
getting in
do is
between, yeah.
get Amy to start doing this job now.
I've been doing this job
And that's not
You
what.
haven't been doing social media, have you?
So
Well, she's saying not doing social media.
Yeah, I think we should leave it separate for now. We don't want to incorporate we may even want to go back to city council and say we're not in favor of that if we we don't find the right person. I mean, that's a high level marketing position, someone who's handling a city this size and handling all the social media too. That's I agree with Rebecca.
Well, let me be clear, Jeff, what we're experiencing is growing pains and transitioning, and this happens in a lot of different ways. In school business, we do the same type of thing. How do we transition when we have new things and new horizons we need to hit and take care of, but we have skill sets that when they were hired, we were back here.
Yeah.
That's what city council's saying. That's what citizens are saying. That's what it is. It's like, we have, what, 3 people making 6-figure salary, and we're trying to sit here and wrestle with that type of deal. So city council has to look at the broad umbrella and be able to go out there with ammunition. All I'm asking the city staff is, give me the ammunition.
Yeah.
I got no problem when you tell me, hey, this, and this. Personalities, I realize, I wish the personality stuff would have gone away. But it hadn't, and that is part of what fuels that. But I'm big on facts and figures, because it's hard to argue with details. This is happening, this is happening. And I know in my heart and mind, we're getting well more, but I can't just feel from my heart on that.
We're getting well more what?
We're getting well more bang for our buck. But I can't go out there and say, well, what we actually need is another 6-figure. And then they're going to go like, whoa,
Yeah.
What's going on? I think we have to realize as an MEDC board also, you have a bunch that is in a perpetual state of Grinch. And a good part of what the MEDC does is festivals. And they're like, don't come to them. Don't participate in them.
Are you talking about citizens now?
I'm just talking about a good number of loud voices and then citizens that still don't realize it because they themselves don't come to it. I mean, even the Christmas, I'd like to know how many people were here that were actually from here. I'm not sure it was all that because where y'all from, Katie? And people I'm standing next to. And so I'm thinking, I'm sitting there going, daggum. We must be reaching people pretty good ways. Fulshire, Cy-Fair, Waller, they're coming in. Bryan, Navasota. So they are coming in, so that means that's effective, and that's what I'm seeing.
Right,
But the citizens here that pay the taxes and elect us, we got to have something. That's really, in essence, that's where I'm coming from.
What do they want?
Just give me something. If I say we need a $120,000 position, tell me that, staff.
Yeah.
But every time we add another part-time, to the part-time people, they're like, exactly like me you want me to work 70, 80 years and the highest salary I ever made was $53,000 for an administrator?
Yeah.
So I'm feeling it. Try doing that for 30 years, right?
So my question is, what exactly is the end game? Or what do you think is the end game?
I think that the end game is you go through the process. So we're going to say on the city council, we went out there. Guess what?
Couldn't find
it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not there. I had to done that dozens of times. I had to show them I could not find a volleyball coach that's female. I just couldn't do it.
Right. So what you're saying is that we're obligated to go through the process anyway, because you have to open an application process up. We're doing that. For now, I agree with Carol. Let's just go ahead and fund the 2 separate entities for now. Let them collaborate. In the event Amy does end up becoming this person or whoever, we at least have someone stay in the course until that happens. Is that kind of where we're all wanting to be? Or, in other words, we gotta have two people taking care of the job because one person doesn't know it. That's kind of what I read.
Right, I'm thinking more that Amy's doing the meetings, she's doing the originally envisioned special projects activities.
Yeah, but we had
That's
already,
not what this line item is asking more than what we approved in the past. And so now this line item is asking us to combine the one and let Amy start doing it and let Amy start making the 55 to 65,000. That's the way I'm reading item number 8.
Well, it is what the EDC did have money for. So, I mean, we
But-
originally envisioned it in
But
our budget.
That's not what she was contracted for. So are we going back on the contract and we have to redo all that? This line item is telling me that she's gonna start doing all of the new stuff, making possibly 65,000, and Richard's looking at applications and they may only be the 50 or 60,000. So where am I missing this at?
why don't we just extend what we have until you get to, if it's a month, extend what we have. We already did an extension. Let's just do another extension and kick it down one more month. And when you get to the end of this vetting process, then we can make a decision on who's worthy of whatever salary we decide to push forward on. Does that sound fair?
That's what you generally do. You set a salary based on qualifications.
So we're not going to add all these extra duties. We'll just go ahead and continue with the same two people that are doing the same two different parts of the job, I guess, and then and just extend the money that we had already allocated through February.
That would be fine with me, and then management can take care of my concerns for funding. How's that work for a couple of months till you get the right person who does it? Or you shift your labor force to be able to cover what you were saying, if you can't accomplish that.
So is the title that we have now events coordinator? Is that what we have now?
That's the contracted title.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the extending of the contracted position of events coordinator pay to extend through the hiring of the special projects manager's position.
And I'll second it.
It has been moved and seconded that we extend the payment and term of the contracted events coordinator position through the hiring of the special projects manager position. Did I get that right, Carol?
That's good enough. Yes, ma'am.
This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will extend the term and payment of the contracted events coordinator position through the hiring of the special projects manager position.
Amy, bless your heart, if you're working more than what this little contract said, stop. I'm sorry, but
That's the way you should be doing it.
That's just the way that I'm seeing it, and hopefully you're the one, and then you've already got the experience and you'll just pick up and go right on. But that's not the way that.
Yeah, it's not fair to Amy or to Rebecca really, just to pull the rug out from under everybody.
Right. No.
Let's just keep it going until we can get somebody, or keep the people we have.
Yes.
Ultimately, one final thing, ultimately, it is top management's job to show us how the labor force is ebbing and flowing. I had a specific conversation, and again, I've said it, when you're crying out for help, that's fine, but you just need to give the city council ultimately justification for that, and that helps all of us, because we're all out there saying the same rationale.
Well, maybe somebody from the MEDC needs to go to a city council meeting and explain the value of whatever.
For the first time, I'm seeing some of it.
Okay, good.
Because I'm big on, I don't care whether anybody likes it or not, that's
Oh, we
who
love
I
it.
am. I need facts and figures for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I need long-range plans to deliver, to tell me why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I need data that says to me, I don't need somebody's gut feeling
Yeah.
or whim.
Well, all you can do is look at progress, and progress is put in Facebook and Google and all of, I mean, I get reports every single month. So they tell you what you're doing and how it's working, and that's the proof in the pudding right there. And like you said, they're coming from all over.
Yep.
That's a good thing. But what you're saying is you need to be able to share that with your fellow
We need to
council people.
justify it on the council, because ultimately, we're the ones that are speaking to in terms of y'all are the voters, as well as the taxpayers, and of course, we all know we're taxpayers, but yeah, we're constituents are putting us here to do a job.
Yeah.
And when they text us and they say, I don't see why this, that, and the other, then we got to start getting some justification, and that ultimately falls on management to do that for us.
Okay, we'll come up with something. We'll help.
I do think as a sort of side comment, it is important to keep in mind that the city of Montgomery's sales tax base is unlikely to come solely from its residents. So we need to be very cognizant and possibly appreciative of the fact that we do draw people in, whether it's to Kroger, whether it's to McCoy's, to Chick-fil-A, or to our festivals, and the amount of money that people spend from outside of the city, we would not be able to have the infrastructure that we do or budget that we do without the out-of-town sales taxpayers. So that's
Absolutely.
an important thing to keep in mind. There's no way at all that the 1,000 or 1,200 of us that live in the city limits could ever generate that kind of sales tax.
No, that's a true statement. You got, I mean, the city limits is at the pizza shack. I mean, how many Walden people go to the Kroger daily? I mean, it's, you know, very much so.
It's just something to keep in mind. It's hard because you hear from the people who live here, because somebody from Katy or somebody even from Walden will be calling their elected representatives, or if they do, they have to call all the way to Conroe if they even have their direct phone numbers, which I sincerely doubt, but.
Well, I think, you know, sometimes when you're trying to appease constituency, it's best, just like Byron says, just to give them the facts and say, this is the progress that's been made.
Right. That's definitely an extra fact to add,
you
though.
can't deny facts, okay? That's what we're doing, and this is, we see it's working because the graph is going that way.
Right.
And it's only gonna keep going that way with 4,000 or 5,000 new rooftops coming in the area. Not in Montgomery, but in the area. It's gonna be a mass of humanity.
Right.
So now, I don't definitely agree with Byron. Whoever does this job, they're gonna have to have their, you know, their hat on straight, because there's a lot to do to get ready for all of the moving parts, and working with government to, you know, to ensure that we're all able to accommodate this new influx of humanity is going to be kind of important.
Right, especially the special project job, there's a lot of different aspects of that job into one job. So
Well, I see that job as needing an assistant at some point, because it's just getting to that point. Yeah.
See, it never stops, does it?
But maybe it's a volunteer position.
Great, blah, 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 blah. On to number 9, no, I'm kidding. So number 9, discussion on planning timeline for projects in the downtown master plan, Richard.
Okay. This discussion is intended to be a starting point for looking forward in the planning of those downtown islands. We're already moving forward from a city perspective on the sidewalks on the northern side going east of the downtown area. What we've included for you is this sheet out of the master plan, which had a basic outline of timelines of certain items in there, identified as short, medium, long-term.
Oh wait, so city council did accept our $200,000 without complaint or alteration?
Well, they're happy to have that available, coming to them.
Oh.
Technically official acceptance won't come until there's an actual project assigned. There are certain legal steps that have to be gone through because it's a project of more than $50,000. There's going to have to be posted out in the paper for 60 days before you're able to actually then take the next vote to do it. it has to be read and approved on 2 different agendas.
Right.
I don't recall if that's on the MEDC side or city council side, before city council can authorize and doing it. There's a lot of tripwires that come with MEDC funds on projects.
Right.
But they'll be happy to have it.
Yeah, I'm sure. So they didn't want to, have somebody, an intern do it or anything like that?
No, there was no such thing.
If I ran my business.
Okay. Continue on.
Okay.
Oh, nothing.
Yeah.
I'd still be selling hot dogs.
Along with this is going to be, there's a lot of costs that are in here, plans over a decade, up maybe 10 to 12 years. And I think what some of this comes down to is, how much of this is going to be spent by the EDC, how much is going to be spent by the city. The EDC has thus far been driving the downtown redevelopment. Is that something the EDC wants to continue to do? If so, I think the EDC is going to then need to take the lead in terms of what does it want to fund, in conjunction with the city.
So what, let me ask you this, clarification for the 3 to 5 midterm Klepper Street reconstruction, is the sidewalk project roughly 285 part of that 400, or is this a 400 exclusive of sidewalk work?
That does not include sidewalk work, that is just the road.
That's just
That was just the road.
okay, my goodness, okay.
And this does include that the cost estimates you see are also in 2021 dollars. So anything that is farther out, you need to add, I think they expected it to factor in about 4% inflation rate. As we've seen recently, that may not entirely be accurate, so some of those costs will be continuing upward. The sooner you get to some of these projects, the less they will cost, obviously. We also can't do all of these in 1 year.
Yeah.
So,
Do we have to make some type of, can we just pick a few that we like now and then revisit this later? I don't see the necessity of going through each one of these, especially if they're 10 years out. So many things change in 10 years, so maybe we pick a few short-term, midterm ones that we want to kind of back and then negotiate with the city.
And part of what I wanted to do is kind of get a Gantt chart, like if we
Yeah.
want this to happen in 2 years, like what do we have to be doing like right now?
Yeah,
I get
to
yeah, and
I
when
get
it comes to
that.
that, I mean, if you told me today, okay, we want to do everything that's there on short term, how do we do that? The first question I come back with you is, okay, how do you plan to fund that? Because you're looking essentially at $1.6 million. Let's say you want to bring a couple items from the middle chart over, and we're talking $2.5 million. So, fine, that'll be what we're looking at spending over the next 3 years. How do we want to do that? There are certain financing options that are available to the EDC. There's also the possibility of asking the city to issue a tax note where there's a document signed, an agreement between the MEDC and the city, where the EDC is funding but those projects have been done as joint projects between the city and the EDC. There's a lot of possibilities in there in terms of how those are done. It could also be, well, that the EDC identifies these projects as their priority, as going to contribute a certain percentage, and then ask the city council to move forward on those. If the EDC wants to drive these projects, then I think we need to have some idea of how the EDC wants to move them along.
So what's the low-hanging fruit besides Klepper? I mean, is there something that we can get started on that's going to make the greatest impact as far as economic development?
Well, if you look at the short-term list, that's a combination of the low-hanging fruit, which is the drainage master plan, the utility master plan downtown. But you need to have those done before you're going to do any work.
Yeah, I agree. And then the parking is an issue, and I think we need to get behind that because that could take a long time to
Right.
develop those
And so,
partnerships as well.
I think that short-term list is probably, in my thought, most of your early priorities.
Yeah.
The McCown Street reconstruction and the streetscape, that could be pushed back, but I think that's also an important component of the downtown area, and so I wouldn't push that one back.
I was gonna say, I think that's what people really want to see, is where the improvement is needed the most and where
Well,
the most.
it made sense for me to start, for me it made sense from a geographic and logistic. Geographically, it's right in the middle. logistics wise, it's going to eventually be blocked as a pass-through, but it already essentially is because nobody goes out that spot anyway, hardly. But as a festival type planner person, that would factor into how much of that enchilada you take on at a time, because that also is where the festivals are largely done. And so, again, I think McCowan is in much need for a facelift.
Yeah.
Now, I'm with Ryan, though. Almost every page of the revitalization talks about the importance of parking. And I've been told that some of this parking can be reconciled on Pond Street. I'm also told that people like Wings over Montgomery has already started cleaning up the back part of his and offering a few there, which is Pond Street. So if we could do the combination of getting more beautiful and attractive where the festivals are without ruining the festivals, you know, at the same time we're trying to get some parking alleviated, which to me does make sense on Pond Street, possibly with some partnership ideas with businesses. I mean, I don't know what else anybody else has heard, but that combination works for me. With that said, how much of that $50,000 downtown master drainage plan is going to tear stuff up, and where is that mainly, Richard?
That's just paper.
The plans are just paper.
Well, that's just the planning part?
Yeah, that's
Good.
That's the plan of the work that you need.
There's not a shred involved.
Okay, I just want to make sure there's no other construction going on.
Yeah, in fact, you really need to do those plans before you want to start tearing stuff up.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, part of the $1 million streetscape, everything includes digging and replacing.
Right, because on McCown, you're going to deal with underground water, wastewater. You know, while the area is open, it might be the proper time for the electric company to come in
Oh, absolutely.
as well.
Want to do it one time.
And you know, and in addition to the
Shared trench.
drinking water and wastewater, you know, drainage. You know, that all needs to be handled through some sort of underground before you get back up to the ground level, redo the paving, and then you're talking about
In the
streets.
layman's terms or layman's eyes, you spend a couple $1 million and it's all underground. Nobody sees it, so they want to know why you did it.
Right.
I think that
You need to.
But you need to have a good foundation.
Absolutely.
Put there. In this case,
Don't build on sand,
Our
in other
foundation
words.
goes down at least, 6 foot.
So where are you in terms of the city deciding what actually has to happen underground in terms of what we own? Because we've talked about that at least over the last 6 months.
The city is in the process of, I think it's going to start next month. A lot of the sanitary sewer lines, they're being televised, and a good portion of that includes downtown areas.
Okay, so that still hasn't started?
That hasn't started, but it's starting soon.
Okay.
And then, talking, need to do the downtown master utility and master drainage plans.
so
I think those three items need to happen before you're talking about construction. It doesn't mean we can't start talking about
But
construction.
we can't even plan until we know what the city has to do, and then the city has to actually engineer and build what has to happen underneath before we can do anything on top of it.
Right.
it seems to me like a drainage plan and master plan is a function of the city to do. I don't know how that seems like it's going to be like going between Senate and House Representatives. Like how do we negotiate that?
Well, it's marked
Like, can we say, hey, we want to do these 2 plans, y'all, can y'all pay for it, and we'll do the prettier stuff like
And that
McCown
goes back to
Street.
my opening statement of how quick does the EDC board want to do it, because
Well, I think the plans are
if the
need to be
EDC
done.
board wants to say, we want the city to do this, then I need the city council to authorize that. If the EDC board is such a priority, it wants those done, then I can go to the city council and say the EDC board is willing to pay for it or for this percentage of it. I'm not saying that's what you should do,
So
but I think you need to keep in mind, there's a practical limit of,
so we have to pay for the expediency, I guess, of, if we want to plan now, we're going to pay, we have to pay for it.
I guess my question is, where the expediency is that the EDC board might be willing to pay for, as the offset to how how quickly do we want to get this done from the EDC perspective,
Isn't,
when it may not be the same priority with city council.
so is the city not doing a utility plan right now? I thought WGA was doing something already along those lines.
We're working through the capital improvement plan, and that's gonna get finished before the next one gets picked up.
Okay, so the city council is on board to moving forward as soon as possible.
The city council has accepted this plan as well as the EDC board.
So the city is funding.
In adopting the plan, it adopted that it wants to do these items.
So the city's funding the utility master plan.
Or is that just
No.
what Gunda said?
Well, it says it in parentheses is the thing, it
Well,
says
that-
city.
on here is what Gunda put, saying that
Yeah.
they saw the city funding it, but keep in mind, the city's budget for the current fiscal year that ends September 31 was set before this document was printed by Gunda and approved by this board and city council. And so, whereas they felt, whereas Gunda felt in identifying it, the utility master plan, that was a city function, it isn't budgeted by the city. Certainly, I can go to city council as soon as we're done with the capital improvement plan and say, this is the next step for the downtown projects. I'm also going to have to get them to approve the funding for it. I don't think that would be highly problematic. But at the same time, I'm telling you, the funding hasn't been approved, so I've got to go ask for it. And I'm not saying this.
In my
board should-
mind, the city should be doing the drainage plan and the
I feel like that's
utility
just
master
a
plan.
function of city
It should
services,
be
is to do
city.
those types of plans.
So,
And the
we need
MEDC, I can understand, we want to improve the streetscape. That's not necessarily a city's
Right.
job to go make things look pretty. That's more of our job to help bring tourism. So I see the plans being the city, and then the streetscape being at least 50% of us, or maybe some percentage we can talk about later. I don't know how you come to an agreement on that too, but.
So I was looking at the budget, we have $175,000, give or take a couple pennies, budgeted towards downtown development improvements for this year.
how much?
172,250.
Oh.
But let's just round it.
One,
You're comfortable with the rounding?
gotcha.
So.
And the amount, and encouraging the city to go forward, if we put a chunk of that and said to the city, we're moving on this, Richard, is what you're saying, if we were to make that move with the intent of getting to the middle of downtown, would the city consider going ahead and doing their part as soon as possible?
But you're getting a step ahead of what I'm asking, but it's definitely in that same direction. I'm trying to find out what the intensity is, here with this group, so I know how to move between this group and city council. Because there's plenty of places that approve a nice, pretty document and never do anything with it.
Right.
And that was not the sense I had when we approved this. The sense I had when it was approved both by here and city council is, okay, we want to go do this.
Definitely.
I want to make sure I understand how badly you want to go do this before I get way out in front of traffic and I get run over because nobody on this board really wanted to put money into it, and then I get council mad at me because I'm wanting, I'm portraying that you want them to spend the money and you didn't want to have any skin.
What was the $200,000 that we
Yeah, which
graciously acted like we're ready to do something here, please?
and that does really help because then that frees up city money to do.
Correct.
And maybe we just need to demonstrate to the city that we want to do one of these
Right,
other
we're
projects,
ready.
like the
Yeah.
McCown Street. Say, hey, we want to do the McCown Street, but we'd like y'all to pitch in and do the drainage plan, utility plan before, because we need to do those things before we can invest any
Take
money.
it out of the 200.
And maybe part of the more practical question is going to be, since the current year budget, the 172,000, something you're talking about, keep in mind that budget ends September 30th. So then we get into a next year's budget. So are there items that we're going to and can attribute that money to, even if it's set aside for future use out of the fund balance, or the things that we can actually get moving forward on before the end of this fiscal year?
So with the McCown Street reconstruction with streetscape, we would have to hire somebody to do more than just the pictures, right?
The design work, yes, yeah.
So, I mean, we could go forward.
That
with
takes,
some of-
and these are just ballpark costs. I mean, these plans may cost more or less, the reconstruction may cost more or less, especially dependent on a utility plan or a drainage plan. You may have to run a trunk line somewhere that you hadn't anticipated, so these are just ballpark costs.
Well, and for sure, the underground cost should be the city utility fund, since it's their customers who benefit from it. I mean, it's an enterprise fund, so theoretically, I mean, what we all pay when we flush is what funds that underground. So that's a different thing than the city council budget per se. And actually, the utility master plan can come from the utility budget as well. So it'd really just be the drainage plan that city council would need to come from the regular city council budget.
Yeah, that's true. They don't really have, most cities don't have funds for drainage. They don't have a drainage fee.
As I said, we don't have a drainage district.
Right, so-
But, so that would be, you know, a third source of funds is using the utility fund for the utility related expenses. Not that, I mean, it's just a different way of looking at things, the third source. But I mean, if we took our 175,
It's a matter of putting drainage underground means you have to have that grabbed. You have to make sure that you can drain from point A to point B underground. Right now, it's maybe going over the surface, but you need to have someone to tell you, yeah, you can drain from point A to point B without any issues, or what you need to do to get it to do that. So like a lot of these, we want to put things like curb and gutter in. That means getting the water and bringing it several feet underground. You need to make sure you have the outfall for it. So.
which we should, because it's a high point to a low.
Yeah, I don't think there's any concern. I think
spot.
we're fortunate on a drainage perspective, but you still need to have someone to kind of give you the direction to make sure you got everything
And
covered.
possibly sizing for volumes and things like that, so that would make it cheaper to do some of the other engineering, because this drainage study should already have covered the volume sizes for things. But I mean, so I mean, I feel like we need to spend some of our money to hire, or RFP for, or Q, whichever, or whatever it is we do, for a design firm to get into the nuts and bolts of what McCown Street looks like based on what we've gone through with Genda. I mean, does that seem like a logical step?
Yeah. And the MEDC paying for it. I think that would be like us and, our down payment at least now to get the design going, to say we're serious about it, and then we can talk about, and they'll prepare cost estimates. We'll have a better figure here of, after the design is done, how much it's going to cost, and then we can start talking with the city in the meantime, or get feelers out perhaps on who's.
Well, and good to also incorporate, I guess, some of the stuff from the kids from A&M. I mean, there's a lot of design that's already been done in their pictures.
They gotta get in the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, but there's no cost involved in that, obviously.
Right, as I say, there's no way you can go
But we have
from
a
there
vision.
to detailed drawings either. So there's definitely there's still an intermediate step, I think, from where, the A&M kids were for sure conceptual and interesting. Gunda is practical, but not quite buildable, and so we need somewhere between that and you need this many pieces of rebar right here. So I think that's whoever we need to hire to get to that point.
Sure.
I'm sure you know more than I do about who it is that we need to RFP for.
So working towards the McCown Street design, getting that design is really the next focus for us. I can work with that in the next month and bring, at worst, an outline and maybe something more fully developed back.
Right. Would it make sense to move the wayfinding? It says a signage study, I don't know, do we need a study, or how does, Ryan, do you have any experience with signage studies?
I
Richard,
don't.
can you reach out to Gunda and ask them what the heck a $50,000 signage study gets us?
Because that looks like something that could.
Because we could buy a lot of signs for $50,000, I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
but that might be something that we could use as on an interim basis to, like a mini project if McCown is gigantic.
Wayfind, that's called an arrow, isn't it?
I know, right?
I will work with those items that way. Back to us next month.
Yeah.
Is there anything else besides
No, I do
Are you
know
just looking
this.
for general direction from us?
That's
You've
what I
gotten
mean
enough
there is-
information?
Yeah, what I was looking for is some direction, okay, what are the next step or two, so then I can bring this board back, which looking for, and also not let this get forgotten.
And Richard, also, is the city planning on doing a tax bond anytime soon?
That goes with what I was just saying, about to say is because,
I have had some discussions with our financial representative on it.
Because I think that that's something we should think about too, in terms of if the city does a tax bond, we might want to piggyback on that, because I think that's probably the cheapest way we can raise money. So, yeah, because we have $2 million in the bank, Carol, give or take.
2.2.
So, we might need, does anyone think that interest rates are going to be lower next year than they are today?
No.
Now they're getting ready to shift to next month.
So if that's the case, and the city borrows, should we piggyback on top of that and then bring some of our projects forwards?
Well, if that was gonna happen, how much are you talking about?
$4 million? How much does $4 million cost? Didn't bring my calculator. Is that like $200,000 a year?
I was just going to comment that I was studying capital improvement today, and I can tell you 2023, it's over 2 million, and 2024, it's well over 5 million.
Yeah, in talking with financial representative that the city deals with for bonds and tax notes and stuff like that, and I did discuss with him, okay, what if the EDC told me it wanted to just it wanted to entirely fund this and do it as quickly as possible. He said even then, you would want to look at doing this in multiple ways of financing, because you don't want to borrow the money and take more than 2 or 3 years to get
Right.
that work done. You're going to want to, if
Take
you're
it in-
borrowing it, you can't
it's in
just be
chunks.
holding on to the money for several years. before
Right.
you spend it.
I know we're not supposed to
Put it on the
arbitrage,
ground.
but what if we accidentally arbitraged? And borrowed at 3% and then the interest rates went to 7%?
Then you give all the excess back to the federal government.
Is that bad?
We don't want to do
Can't we
that.
give it to like hungry kids instead?
No, you can't. I mean, it would be
on
virtuous
McGowan Street.
and good-hearted, but legally it could not.
I mean, I still don't think that'd be the worst thing if you borrowed rather than borrowing at 3% and then borrowing at 7%. I mean,
No, I agree with you, it's certainly not the worst thing financially, because at worst, you're breaking even.
right. I don't know. And then just borrowing once is cheaper than borrowing twice. 'Cause
Yeah,
only pay
you do have
lawyers'
closing
fees.
costs and
Yeah.
all the incurred fees every time you do it.
I don't know, could we spend $4 million in 3 years? Never
In
mind.
a minute.
It's been in 6 weeks.
You could very easily spend 4 million.
Oh, yeah, that's nothing. That's a drop.
I mean, just looking at some of these
Dig
projects,
into that ground.
and that's
Water.
without waiting, that's without TxDOT moving forward, and, depending on what upgrades they want us to participate in, I mean, that's like chunks of change that aren't even on here. Oh, yeah, they are, sorry, they're over to the right. There we go. Oh, yeah, so there we go, 5 years, 2.5 million, yeah, so that's another 6 million right there. So, 5 million just in TxDOT, so if they came earlier rather than later, then that's more than that right there.
When do those raised medians, down 105?
I
TxDOT.
don't think they're coming down this way. They
No.
stop at
No,
2054.
They will eventually.
No, they-
Eventually, but
They're
they're only,
coming as far as the eastern edge of the city.
which is
Yeah.
2054.
And, that's
Yes.
entirely on TxDOT's schedule. They're starting, the construction work you see out that way, say by Spirit of Texas Bank,
Yes.
is part of the early phase of the project where they're working on the edges of the road, but it will ultimately include median space.
Well, they're bringing in a lot of barricades just past that, next to the Whataburger over there, so there's something getting ready to happen.
Well, they're putting in all these these right-hand curb turns, so that means they're getting ready to widen, which means they'll be putting the raised median. The reason I ask that is because as you look at some of these improvements that we've talked about, and constituents and their concerns, I think if you could show people that that progress is being made, like TxDOT coming in and putting the raised medians and us coming in with the flags or whatever we decide we're gonna put. It just shows that, development is taking root.
Right, people seeing progress definitely goes a long way because they see something happening. The trouble is, it probably takes 80-90% of a lot of the planning work and a lot of the other work done
Right.
before you see what's the finished project.
Well, we've already approved and we've gotten approval, and so we're ready to push forward. I think there's not, the will of the board is to push forward. And so that now we just need to get city council on board, and if you need to do a bond referendum or something to kick that project off, let's rock and roll. We all are in agreement that it's coming. Sooner the better.
I mean, you don't need a motion or anything for our,
No.
No,
Just want a direction.
I've got enough to get started to be able to then bring it.
and reading in the community impact this last issue, this medians and the TxDOT is immediate. I mean, they're starting, so.
It's going to be a lot of excitement.
They'll be super popular though, but I mean, it's one of those things that's happening. So the real important part is getting out and making it less of a desolate frontier and more in line
Right.
with what we can live with aesthetically.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I can tell you is here from a city staff point of view, between the administrative staff, the police staff, looking at Kroger's where it is before Chick-fil-A ever opened and envisioning the traffic crossing that road, we tried putting on TxDOT's radar almost 2 years ago. The needs that were going back in that area. The city council, probably 8 or 9 months ago, I think, authorized a traffic light study on 105 over at Buffalo Springs, I think. And gave that to TxDOT, done in a TxDOT format, so it could accelerate their ability to place a light there because they weren't doing that study for another 2 or 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
So, we've been doing a lot of this work trying to help expedite TxDOT along for public safety reasons.
And believe me, Jeff, when I tell you, I'm talking to a business owner on 149, right? When are they gonna widen 149? Well, blah, blah, blah. Well, they've been telling us for 5 or 6 years, but that's what we get. We try to go out there, meet and greet people and, talk to them all the time. I'm out there talking to people and all the time I'm getting back. And I reiterate to them, the left-hand turn, right-hand turn lane, we were supposed to have that September 2021. It's still not there. And Richard, you made a comment coming on board. When you get on and you really see what happens, it moves at the speed of molasses. And you're sitting there with earmarked money, and yes, we can earmark money, but we got no guarantees how fast TxDOT is gonna go ahead and do their thing. And then we sent energy down to a hurricane zone, which that was the sole reason, or the biggest reason why the right-hand turn lane there wasn't done by September. So that was working on 5-month delay just because a hurricane came in another area, and the utility company wasn't there. So everything there's just so many moving parts, more so even than the school business that I've had to learn that it is a slow pace. So it does get a little frustrating because you're sitting there and you're going, yeah, let's go. Nobody balked on the city council. We all think it's great. But boy, so these numbers really are, you better add about 3 to 5 years on every little phase there.
Man, my concern is just the safety of it all.
Well, and public safety as a consumer and a developer, those back alleys that you guys started doing over there on these new areas that are going, those ought to be mandatory. That ought to be written in, and you can do that as a city, to where you keep people off that road and they can cut across those back ways to go to the car wash, to go even across to the pizza shack. You need to throw a culvert in there and get that over the hill.
You're actually getting into one thing I was going to mention.
And beside the CVS
development
there.
report coming up in a little while
Yeah.
is because of one of the new shops that is moving forward with opening, we'll be able to connect Kroger
Absolutely.
out to.
If you keep, because you can go down there and stand there 10 minutes and somebody's gonna pull out a Panda, whatever it is, and go all the way across as opposed to going down to the light you know, and, because, you know, you just have that.
Well, and I'll tell you, I read something from Chick-fil-A before coming in here, and I don't pull out there. I drove down all the back alleys, came out
Exactly.
for those springs, partly to look at the construction, and partly as I'm not attacking crossing 105.
It's, you put your life in your
And
hands.
as I turned left into the turn lane, someone on the other end of Buffalo Springs was turning right, trying to get to the same
Right.
space I was.
Right.
So I accelerated, they slowed down, they got behind me. That's part of how you get to the race begins. The other part is, what if neither one of us, had paid attention to the other end and tried to cross into the
Yeah.
traffic instead of just the turn lane? That's where you're seeing a lot of these high-speed accidents.
Well, and you said, people are getting into a left-hand turn lane and someone else is coming into the left-hand turn lane. I mean, I watched a near head-on collision today, and thankfully they just, at the very last minute. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, TxDOT, there's no way to expedite these guys to get them off their duff and come on.
Not unless you're going to tell me Greg Abbott is, like a very special.
You
close
do a lot of that with
I know Dan pretty good. I can call him. We're like this. This is me over here.
No, you can stop a lot of that with education, though. I mean,
Yeah.
law enforcement can come in and say, hey, that was stupid.
Things like that are why you see, I think you've seen a lot of the signage boards that are portable that we're moving around the city to help with speeds, to help with traffic, to help with direction, to help people be aware of what's going on in different areas.
Right.
We've got some that seem semi-permanent on the major roadways and some that are moving around, but that's all aimed at public safety.
So is there anything we can do as a board or some grassroots effort to try to bring awareness? Or I know you guys are doing what you can to put the Band-Aid on, but is there anything that we can do to help, bring awareness, support, social media, write your local TxDOT? I mean, is there anything we can do to help put a little fire under their, because it would help us to put our lipstick on this beautiful city and create something
But
special.
with regards to TxDOT, almost nobody can make TxDOT really
Okay.
move,
Okay,
other than TxDOT.
gotcha.
I mean, they have got more on their plate than they can handle.
It's kind of like messing with a
Yeah,
railroad.
it'll never end for them, evidently.
Right.
Yeah, got it. Okay. And they're the only ones who build on the roads.
Well, state roads are state roads.
Okay, 105 is a state road.
105 is a state road, 140.
So cities cannot participate or if the city, I mean, it runs through the city, it's a state
It runs
road.
through the city, but it's a state highway.
I understand
So,
that.
it
So,
is
and they're totally
Here,
opposed to a city
we
spending
can't-
money on it?
We're not supposed to even just put up a street sign on the side of the road without their approval.
That's
And
right.
if I wanted to put a no left turn here or something encouraging traffic movement, we have to have state approval to put it in there right away.
Right.
And it's not that we can't necessarily participate, we certainly participated with trying to get that right turn lane going from north
Yeah.
to east. And
That sounds like
as
a lot
Byron mentioned
of,
earlier, we're still waiting on that.
sounds to me like the tail's wagging the dog. If they're coming through your town and they, on your property, that you want
Well,
to get something done.
if it was the other way around, that's an awful lot of expenditure we would have to build.
Oh,
That's true.
I agree 100% with that. I mean, we don't get into that.
But
if it's a safety item, then we
well,
can
now
do-
we need to widen this to 6 lanes.
And then get the grant money later to get it back, so.
Well, Richard, this is kind of related. I'm a big proponent of the tours, and when Becky came that up, I was like, that's a no-brainer. When I bring it to a big developer on 105 especially, he's like, yeah, that'd be awesome. So I go and I hit the ground with this thing and I run it. It makes all kinds of sense. And I'll be reading some things at the very end of this that Carol and I had gone to a workshop or gone to a TML meeting and found out about. And so that tours, that doesn't help us at all with regards to TxDOT, does it? Doesn't give us any leverage, doesn't give us nothing. We gain nothing from that. So, but here's the dilemma. That's our town. Our town is 2 corridors. And when you have a 2 corridor approach, which that's what the TRRZ thing is, makes perfect sense, but I can't make anybody feel better that we're gonna be able to snap our fingers and draw businesses in and take the ones that are already here and make them look all spiffy and perfect anytime soon. It's going to be a process.
We can affect what's on the side of the road and going outward.
We can't
And
affect,
we can work with TxDOT about the road itself, but ultimately TxDOT's going to get what TxDOT wants.
right.
And if we have, we participate in the discussion where we can, we try to have a seat at the table where we can.
Okay, well,
Okay, but overall, for
We've been
agenda item,
educated
I feel
now.
like I had a direction on agenda item 9.
I was gonna say, so we kind of segued, if y'all are okay with it, we'll go on to item number 10, City Administrator's Development Report for February.
Okay, jump to something Dan was saying, related to some of the commercial activity, those back roads with the construction. At the shops in Montgomery, I don't know if y'all noticed, but there's a parallel road system to 105, as I mentioned. I took from Chick-fil-A out almost to McCoy's to get to Buffalo Springs. On the north side, from Kroger, over on the west side of Kroger, there is a road that goes partway behind the car wash. The Discount Tire will be moving forward at the corner of Buffalo Springs. Part of that will have the road completed. So that back road will get completed in the relatively near future. It will allow residents who are, say, in Buffalo Springs, access to Kroger without coming through 105 on that side, without having to go around to Lone Star Parkway as well. So, and it's not lost on us with future development that there are benefits to something like that. There is a back pathway behind where Pet Supply, where the pet store is.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Farther to the east.
Dead ends at the car wash.
And the dentist store, yeah, going back that way too. So there,
We need a
exists more than one
52-inch
area.
culvert right there in that creek when we get over to the beach.
Shops in Montgomery is starting the process of building another building. So that road already connects around the back of that one too. So that is definitely a good corridor function. Commercial construction, is happening in multiple parts of the city right now. Projects moving forward. Residential construction slowed a bit through the holiday season and the winter season, like it pretty much always does. We're starting to see permits come in for more residential homes. Hills of Town Creek is another section about to develop. Town Creek Crossing is beginning development of the homes out there. We're, just in those areas, we're getting ready to see a large influx of housing. City's talking to developers in a couple different areas that are likely to add several hundred homes as well. So residential construction, from today's point of view looking forward, is probably just beginning to hit the next large wave of construction activity. Mentioned earlier about the sidewalk project on the northeast side of downtown continuing to the east. City's also going to be looking at starting to do the study to move forward on towards the sidewalk project in downtown MLK. Also plan to be putting in for grant money for that for the next round from TxDOT on the Safe Route to School program. And I think we've already talked well enough about the downtown improvement plan that you probably don't need me to cover any more of that, but it occupies a large size of the development report in there. And then attached to the back of the development report, have a copy of the Planning and Zoning Commission report. So keep both the MEDC board as well as the City Council up to date monthly on what's going on in the Planning and Zoning Commission, trying to make sure we put as much cross communication here as possible. I'm also providing much more detailed reporting now in the City Council reports on what goes on here with the MEDC as well. So trying to do my part to increase that level of communication back and forth between the boards. And with that, if you'll let me, I'll turn the floor over for the next report.
Part of it brought up the social media report. I have an additional charts here if anybody would like to have a copy. I can pass those out. there's a highly Hootsuite report that has some fabulous charts and comparisons. I can pass that out to y'all. But this can, well, it'll give you a pretty good summary of the performance and how the paid advertising is working, and it's very, very successful. Do you have any questions on that part of it? I've spoken in previous years that the EDC has had a relationship with business owners who have buildings downtown and throughout town to help bring in businesses and find out what the office spaces they have available. How can we help people find office spaces? I've spoken to Michael Overchalk, and he would like to invite the board would like to come to have lunch at Summit Business Park. He'd like to show you the park and the things he's doing out there, and see if we can't build back that relationship. If you're interested in having a luncheon with him, he said he'd provide food and a tour, and can take y'all on a tour. I'm sure Mr. Tran can set up a meeting with that. And I think that would be very beneficial, not just for the board to meet him and see what's out there, but for him to feel some kind of support.
Who is this specifically?
The owners of Summit Business Park.
Oh, the owner of Summit, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
On 1097? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. They have a fabulous place out there and very good spaces, but part of the EDC's job would also be bringing in businesses. I had people contact me trying to find space here in town to have to bring their offices here. And so this is a good contact for the EDC to help connect and bring businesses here.
Do we have a point of contact for Richard for that, for people who are wanting to bring businesses into town, or is it just real estate agents and things like that?
Right now, because we don't really have anyone who is assigned to something like that, those calls usually come through me.
Okay, I was just curious.
And
Chamber of
Commerce. But the recent thing that I guess I was talking to Dave a week ago or so, and I was asking about that plating and the concrete they were pouring between Starbucks and Hot Water. And I think he had made the comment that, the developer expected X number of business to fill it, and 2 had already withdrawn. And it just speaks to the difficulty of the climate, to start a business, to pay the high rents. The lady across from my cul-de-sac's paying $2,000 rent. I didn't want to tell her what I'm paying for my buying. But anyway, and then you get the article that comes out in the last 48 hours about the extremely high rental rates in Montgomery County. And it is what it is. It's hard for anybody to come in there and say, I'm going to put my business in that retail shop in 7.5% inflation and pending spikes in cost of money and everything else.
I'm wondering if, he's been around a long time, and, they've done great work over there. I'm wondering if he could, maybe just get us some information that we could post, not just put on social media. I know it's more of a Chamber of Commerce type thing to really promote businesses that are, for whatever reason, but yeah, I think it would be wonderful to be able to help him out if he's got a lot of empty space. Does he have a lot of empty space?
There's, I think he just wants to build back that relationship with the EDC and get that ball started, I think is.
But how can we support them?
In previous years, the EDC has had a representative who would go to conferences and help find businesses and companies who would come here to town.
Really? The EDC would do that?
Yes.
Wow.
So we paid for somebody who also worked
I was gonna say.
we paid somebody who also worked for the Chamber of Commerce, so whether that was a Chamber of Commerce, whether that was a Chamber of Commerce responsibility or an EDC responsibility, you can.
But it speaks to the TIRZ, kind of moving in that direction, to be able to, but Chamber of Commerce, they have a lot of time on their hands. So somebody like Shannon would be a good representative, and it kind of kill two birds. You gotta join the commerce, and maybe we have a special appointee based on what I'm hearing, I mean, not just this business, but there are others out there who probably could use, have space that would be able to encourage activity.
But just to know what spaces are available here in town, if people call City Hall, it'd be good to have somebody here who knows that the Barnes building has some spaces. I'll check and see how many spaces he has available.
That's very good. Yeah, that's definitely falls on the economic development side of things.
Absolutely. Yeah, looks like the donut shop had 3 or 4 open spaces next to it.
Yeah, I mean, we see there are a lot of spaces available, and they're building all up and down 105, but if we can bring more business here, obviously that builds a better tax base. So, Becky, are you saying that in the years past, before us, there was somebody with the Chamber of Commerce?
So Shannon was funded partly by us and partly by the Chamber of Commerce, but what she was doing was really more chamber work, and so we went in a different direction, and
Gotcha.
We hired Katrina, and then.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
So would that be the responsibility of the new marketing position, or no?
Well, I was gonna say, it's what's on our piece of paper is what's the responsibility.
Let's give them another hat, right? They just-
There is some of that there,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
as Becky was saying, I avoid adding more things to it.
I know, it just seems like it's.
Because at the moment, as I said, introducing that, I may have to figure out how to strip some of that out or to cut some of that back already.
Well, I mean, obviously, the idea is to grow revenue. The only way to grow revenue is to grow business. Grow business, everything wins. And homes, of course, and other things. But my thought is that if there was a way that we could partner with, the Chamber of Commerce is pretty active.
And we do have good communication with the Chamber of Commerce. One thing we have to remember is, our focus is about 5 square miles of Montgomery.
Gotcha.
The Chamber's focus is many times larger of the area that calls itself Montgomery because it has a Montgomery postal
Exactly,
address,
gotcha.
and which is almost 1/4 of the county.
Right.
And we're concerned with this small piece right
I
in the
hear
middle
ya.
of it.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of overlap that we have with them, but there's a lot of area that we don't overlap with, and they put equal priority.
All right, I've got a real simple idea then. Why don't we take and do a little survey of businesses who offer space, whether it's for mini conventions, corporate events, leases, I don't know, any kind of commercial space, and let's get it on our website. Let's get it on Montgomery's website, and where they can get a direct link to reach, instead of going through the city and taking up all your time.
And be happy to do that when we have someone on staff to do that.
Okay. Won't be long. Month.
Month and a half.
My. Yeah, I was just thinking as a way for us to drive people, because if they're coming to the city and you say, let me direct you to the website, I'm gonna send you a quick link. There's several businesses and maybe even those businesses have ways to update their information as far as what their, cost per foot is, or you rent by the day or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of.
And Amy's already taken some good steps in that direction, and we'll be able to follow that more when we have someone hired for the position.
Okay. All right.
Any other, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask if there were any other questions for Amy or Richard, but obviously Amy's.
No.
I'm not there. Then, there's a weekly note, or a monthly note, newsletter that was sent out to the businesses the 1st of February, explaining about how events coming up for February and March. Give them a heads up so they can plan staffing or events if they have something planned that might clash. And I've also kind of cleaned up the big plan event website page on the city site. We work with more information so people can find those relevant documents in one place and not have to go to several pages to find them.
That's great.
This says we currently have 24 events. No, I currently have 26 events for 2022 that I'm expecting to start. And we'll be had I've facilitated nine vendor permits this month. Gotten those straightened out, so that's the majority of what I have, unless anybody has any comments.
Sounds good.
All right, this is not an action item, so item number 12, we do not have anything to discuss in executive session, so item 13 is moved as well. So I'll move on to board inquiry. Is there anything that anyone did not get discussed during this part of the meeting that they would like discussed at the next meeting or in the interim?
No, I was just going to do an FYI for TML. Carol and I went to the TML annual meeting, and it was very heavy in legislative updates. And just in general, some of the stuff that Richard and legal counsel has told the city council is that there's some legislative wars going on that will have a big impact at some point. We just don't know how. And that is the collection on HOTS or hotel types of things, being Airbnb negotiations and things of that nature. And the political climate is hotter than it can possibly be in Texas politics right now. And it's going to be a long, difficult summer, fall. And so, you know, when people ask about that we're going to find out at some point, but we can't get everything settled. The only general thing we know is there's a strong, consistent push that wherever you solicited the business or whatever, that the money goes there, but there's so many other extenuating factors, it's ridiculous.
Sorry, if I can interrupt, Richard, at one point you were supposed to hire a consultant to nail down all the people that were skating over paying the city their hotel tax. Where are we on that?
They're supposed to have a report to us by the end of the first quarter of this year.
So
I did reach out to them last week, followed up with them. I don't have a reply back.
okay.
But we've hired the same company that the city of Conroe uses for that, and they will take over the collection of those taxes and get them into their portal, remit it to the city, and then report it on a quarterly basis.
So at some point, I suppose then the city will have to decide how to use those funds since they can only be used for specific purposes. Generally, it's related to getting kids and beds returned to Montgomery. So that'll be interesting. Anyway, sorry, continue, Byron.
Is this Airbnb people?
Well, we're talking about, what the president's talking about was more hotel taxes. What we're talking about here is, where Airbnb should potentially be charged.
There's no clear definition yet?
So,
Right.
And that gets into all the politics of it.
Yes.
Gotcha, okay. Never mind.
The pending position and whatnot makes a lot of sense for taking, my part-time efforts and things with Houston-Galveston connection. Also stuff that I've just been doing, and no matter what capacity I serve the city, I'll continue to do it, and that is build relationships. So I've been active in chamber. We had discussions with the Workforce Solutions people in December, followed it up with another meeting in January, followed that up with a Zoom meeting that got us connected to Conroe. So Jennifer at the EDC in Conroe and I and the HGAC are staying in touch, and we had our meeting and took all the information we could possibly get and shared that with the school. And so the school is working in that area, and so there is this connection that's recommended by research that nobody's got an easy answer of how. It just takes concerted work to tie chamber values and beliefs and EDCs, and us being such a 4.5 mile square spot, it makes no sense to try to accomplish this by ourselves, knowing that the chamber is outside minded. And so that we have shared interest. And Lone Star College and the one they're adding in Magnolia could be a little helpful too in just expanding possibilities. And I've been campaigning and I knock on doors and I encourage people to support the school and the school bond and specifically, and we need to try to do the same. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of things that sink back into the back parts, and there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. So long story short, the answer is there is no easy answer. There is no easy approach. But my thing that I tell people is if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail. So have a plan and then work the plan. So the plan is kind of, again, look for the people that have these gifts and talents, and then all of us be liaisons and ambassadors to make connections and find the business people willing to make some stuff happen for us. The political climate is not only hot everywhere you look right now, there does seem to be this ginormous deep breath that happens until the primaries are over, and then you go to the next phase and so forth. But my context with being a delegate and talking to these representatives and whoever represents our district can help us with things like water connections and sewer connections. And let's shake some trees. If you don't try, because I still believe that what 1486 is doing right now, we need to get on that Lone Star. I'm just saying, and because you don't snap your finger and make it happen. So if we get on it, 5-6 years from now, when that explosion is sitting over there right off to our west, that's going to be a huge thing for us to do. But if we sit back and wait till the 5 or 6 years and don't make our political connections, I mean, politics is what it is, but that's what I'm doing now. And no matter what seat I'm sitting in, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think he's right. I think now is the time to try to get our feet in, not just our feet in the water, but we need to be swimming with all of these folks who are doing all this development, because eventually we're going to be the recipients of some of their commerce. And if there's a way that we can dovetail, not just from the political side, but also, from a marketing standpoint, we need to be ready when they hit the ground running. We need to be in their mailboxes and letting people know about our little 4 mile square area, and letting people know about the businesses in this area that have unique, capabilities. And I don't know. I think it's just he's right. If you fail to plan to fail. But if you foam the runway, the plane's going to land real nice and easy. So with that, we'll make a motion to adjourn.
Unless somebody has another analogy.
Oh yeah, no more analogies. Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned at 8:20.
I just want to make sure you have 3 more notes to write.
The analogies are easy.